I'm Juan Antón. I'm part of the design team in the Spain offices in Madrid. Right now I'm focused on other stuff, but I've been part of the Lexicon team during the last 2 years. And in some way or another, I'm still involved in the project. I'm going to take care of the first part of this talk. And my partner, Victor Valle, who is the leader of the Lexicon team, is going to carry it with the second part of the talk. In my case, what I'm going to do is just do a brief update of the status of the project. I'm going to start talking about what has been the first stage in the introduction of Lexicon 2 in the 7.1 version of Liferay DXP. And then I'm going to do an advance of the things, the features, the components in which we are working right now, and we plan to introduce in the short term. Okay. Victor then is going to open more the focus, is going to give us more perspective, and is going to talk about some important projects that we put the focus in a medium and long term. And then he is going to talk about how Lexicon can help us to achieve these things and give us some tips. And first of all, let me just do a quick introduction to Lexicon one more time, just in case there's people that still don't know about the project or maybe need some clarification. Okay, Lexicon is basically what we know as a user experience language. And what's a user experience language? It's basically a code based on a design foundations, a definition of components, patterns, templates, rules, and suggestions for its use that is oriented basically to provide visual and interaction consistency to the interfaces of all the products that use the same language. And on the other hand, favor efficiency when designing and building these interfaces. So Lexicon will therefore be the Liferay user experience language. Okay? Right now we are in version 2. That is the one that has been introduced, that is being introduced in Lexicon 7.1, in Liferay DXP 7.1. And the plan is to be extended to the rest of the products of Liferay ecosystem. Like, for example, you can see here in Partner Portal or Analytics Cloud. Okay, I'm not going further with this. As I told you before, Victor is going to give us more details about Lexicon, how can you use it to help you. Just let me present our website, lexicondesign.io. It's a website that we advanced last year here, but right now it's full performance with a lot of content, and we invite you to visit. Okay. So let's go back to our plan then and start with this quick update. As I told you, Lexicon as a reference language has a transversal vocation, we could say. So the objective is to be the visual reference for the interfaces of the library products. But the implementation can have different approaches, depending on the product and depending on the technology that is decided to use in each case. So we can find different implementation for Lexicon, for example. I'm sure that most of you have heard about Clay. Clay is the implementation of Lexicon 2 for Liferay DXP. It's an implementation that started to be introduced gradually in the platform. So Lexicon is started to introduce it gradually as well. Here, we are going to talk about this first stage of introduction of Lexicon in Liferay DXP. One of the first things we did was decide not to include a custom font family in the framework. It's a decision that required some investment on time at first in order to control all the visualization scenarios. Basically, the idea is define the typographic code based based on the operating system from which the product is accessed using the so-called system fonts. As I said, it's something that requires a little bit of investment time, but has provided a lot of benefits, like, for example, reducing considerably the weight of the framework, solving some problems visualization when visualizing some characters of foreign languages, and in general, we think it's very aligned with the soul of the product. We have delivered a new color palette. Basically, it's an evolution of the color palette that we had in the previous version of Lexicon, but trying to solve some issues mainly related with contrast in order to give us more versatility to generate hierarchies with color, for example, and solving some accessibility problems that we have detected in previous versions. We have started to introduce as well a new system of alerts, mainly oriented to two aspects. Again, correcting some accessibility issues detected previously, and then trying to find a better location for the toast, mainly for those messages that accompany the user during the interaction flow. We have introduced a new management toolbar. Maybe is the more complex, widely spread among the administration environment. The Liferay DXP has a lot of dependencies, and due to this nature, we have started to introduce it step by step. So in this first version of this first stage of introduction, have delivered a very basic management toolbar, but we are still working on it, and we're going to deliver more functionality to make this component very powerful. We have done a redesign of the forms, basically a visual redesign of the forms, centered basically in three aspects: a visual redesign of the text inputs in order to be easier to identify within the form boxes. We have done as well a systematization of the hierarchical organization of the block content, different sections within the form box. And then we have reviewed how the form boxes lie out on the page, making the boxes narrow and giving more freedom to include some components, some complements, like components like the vertical navigation, for example. Then we have started to work as well in sites building environments. We have adapted the classic theme to Lexicon, and then we have started to work in a definition of the widget structure and the review of the information architecture of the different visualization of the assets. And for example, in this the first stage in Liferay DXP 7.1, you can see applied to the blog sportlet, for example. Okay. It's something that we continue working on it, and the idea is to work aligned with this project that is called Modern Site Building, that is very, very tight related to this environment of site building. So after this very quick, brief update of what has been the first stage of introduction of Lexicon 2 in Liferay DXP, we're going to talk about some of the new features and components we are working right now. And the plan is to deliver it as soon as possible. Okay? For example, more functionality for the management toolbar. As I said before, it's a component that we delivered with basic functionalities, and we're evolving it step by step. No? For this step, for example, we're going to evolve a functionality that we introduced in 7.1. That is this search result bar. We can see the result criteria, the search criteria and the results, evolving it to giving the possibility to add, to visualize the filter criteria and manage this filter criteria as well. Well, and another some details, for example, related with contextual actions, solving some conflicts that we have detected related with accessing different actions when selecting multiple items, for example. We're going to deliver a new car component. Basically, it's going to be a wider car with a wider space for visualization of the images, respecting the original ratio of the images, more space for the title, the content, possibility to introduce icons so we can have more visual access to some priority actions, for example, redesigning the user car, for example, aligning with the rest of the places where we represent the user asset, for example. And then giving the possibility to, something very simple, but it's important, giving the possibility to, for example, select the card, just clicking in whatever place of the card, not just in the checkbox. That is something that belongs to a project in which we are working right now to enrich the interactions we can do over the table rows, the list group items, and the cards itself. We are working as well in a new table component in which there are new features, but most of them are very basic things that we didn't have, but were highly demanded, and we are going to introduce in a new version of this component. For example, the possibility to manage the filter criteria from the header of the table of the rows, very basic. The possibility to access to quick actions where when act in the row on hover, priority actions that we can decide which one to put there. As I said before, related to cars, enrich the interactions we can do with the items. In this case, with the row. So we can just click in the row in an empty space of the row to select this row, or just double click to navigate, or just use the keyword, for example, for perform multiple selections. Or a very highly demanded feature as well, that is the possibility to fix the header on the top, the header and the management toolbar on the top, just to keep it there when we need it. Then there is some other functionalities that maybe are not highly prioritized, but we are working on it and we wanted to share with you. Like, for example, the possibility of rearrange the columns by a horizontal drag and drop. Or the possibility of show and hide the different columns in order to customize the space and giving the possibility to the user to better compare different type of data. And then finally, we are working in a series of style fixes. Okay? It's basically visual stuff. I'm going to show you some images. Are not final images. It's part of the work we are doing. But just I think it helps to illustrate what is the focus and we weren't going to arrive, more or less. The idea is just to get rid of extra hierarchies, boxes, lines, backgrounds, and go into a more simple interfaces, more unified environments, and also help designers and developers to build the interfaces and to integrate and rearrange the different components more naturally. Okay? I hope with these images, I think I'm not explaining it very well, but maybe with the images you can have a look. Basically, it's this: cleaning the interface, get rid of these frame boxes that we had, that most of the times was made the possibility to introduce new components, new structures, made it difficult because there was some pre-built structures that sometimes they were not needed. Just some images to illustrate what is the evolution of this work. And that's it for me. Now I leave you with Victor, that's going to finish this talk and talk. very interesting things. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. So now I'm going to speak about what are the Liferay plans for Liferay DXP evolution related to UX in a medium long term. And well, first of all, I want to highlight that we are going to embrace business users. This is something that has been said in many of our talks today, the one from Jorge, the one from Charles, for example. He was also talking about embracing business users in Analytics Cloud, although I'm going to refer only to Liferay DXP. And I have to say that business users, as you may know, they are not technical users. And Liferay sometimes has been only, or at least in the past, has been only thought for technical people, right? And as Brian said this morning, sometimes you can feel like Liferay is like flying a plane, and maybe what we have to make now is to make it like Liferay is like driving a car, like many people can do it and can interact and can build things with Liferay. Although we will still have in the future this part where we need technical people behind that, but we need to embrace those business users so they can be more individual and they can have more powerful tools. And how we will do that is by two different means, right? The first one is by empowering them directly with new features and tools. And the other way is through empowering them by empowering IT users. So we will empower them with new tools so they can build custom things for business users. So let's go to the first case. Let's think about marketers. They are people that need confirmation on what they are doing is the right thing they are doing. And they need to have immediate confirmation on what they are doing. That's why we are developing products as modern set building, where marketers have the possibility to right away change a text, change an image, and see how it's going to be displayed for the end user of the website. Or imagine that you have a web content and you're creating as a marketer, you are creating a web content and you have a draft, but you need to see that draft content in a page. So we are going to make available this possibility of showing drafts inside a page, something that we don't have right now, but we will have in a near future. Or, for example, imagine that you are a marketer that are creating a segment, building different rules, and you need to know what users this tool is going to, this segment is going to apply to, right? So you need to preview the users that are going to be affected. Or even more, when you have these segments created, you will need to see what are the contents a segment is going to see inside a page, or what other, or you will need the capabilities to change segment to segment inside a page to see how they do look like to different audiences, let's say. And the second part of this part of embracing business users, we are going to do it by enhancing the administration experience. And I want you to remember this name, this title, because this is what we are going to talk about during the next years, how we are going to improve the administration experience and what are we going to do. And probably next year we'll come with more advanced steps on what we have done and what we will do as a next step. So we have realized that we have our common administrators, right? That are the super administrator, virtual instance administrator, and site administrator. And for us in Liferay, they are quite technical. And they are used to this solution, where you see the product menu with the control panel, the user panel, and the site panel. And you know that you are used to hide and show options here. But while analyzing our business users and referring to different market cases, we have found out that, for example, in commerce, there are different business users who are also administrators, and they go farther than the common administrators that we have. They are solution-specific administrators. And for example, in commerce, we have the manufacturers, where you can find the agent, the order manager, or the CSR, where the CSR, for example, only manages customers, orders, or payments. And then there is another administration side that is only for the customer, where there is the store manager, the catalog manager, account manager. And for example, we can take the catalog manager, who only touches the catalog, and that's all. And they need specific interfaces for that, or at least specific administration experiences for that, let's call it like that. If we go to the university case, we can see the same, right? Imagine a university scenario where there is a university sites administrator, not only for the side of the university, but for each of the schools. And inside each school, there are different departments. So there is a site administrator for the departments. But inside each department, there are teachers who also need to create sites for their subjects. And in some occasions, and we have seen that in some of the universities we have interviewed, the teachers create sites per subject and even per year. Also, at the university, there are other administrators. We could call them administration worker and staff who only cares about the students and supplies and things like that. So they need interfaces that adapt to them. So with that, what we say is that sometimes you will need to create several administration experiences, not only the one that we offer to you by default in the product, in Liferay DXP, but you will have to create new ones. Like, for example, commerce is doing with commerce accelerators. We see this one where the manufacturers have access to just some applications that only affect to them, and these applications do not live only at site level in the Liferay architecture. They live also at distance level, and you have to be able to manage those things. We have seen it in Berry also, another commerce accelerator. So with that, what we want to say is not that we are going to stop doing what we do right now. So we are going to continue improving the default administration experience by bringing new patterns, new components, by bringing a new information architecture, by removing things that we consider should not be there and separating things. But we are also going to help you building your own administration experiences from more reusable and customizable building blocks. That this is already possible, as you saw in the commerce accelerators, but we know that it is not easy, and we want to help you doing that in an easier way. And how is Liferay going to help you doing that? It's basically through Lexicon. And how Lexicon will help you doing that? As I said, through components, extension points, and interfaces to help you. So now I'm going to dig a bit more on not what is Lexicon, because Juan already did it, but how Lexicon is organized and how can you consume Lexicon in a better way, right? Lexicon is divided in these 5 main points: the foundations, the core components, the satellite components, templates, and examples. Basically, to know all about Lexicon, you only need to focus on the first 2 ones, combining those two, you will be able to create any kind of interface possible, and I will show you later. The other 3 points are basically examples and things we expect you to inspire you, basically. And then I will show that also. So in the foundations, we can find the colors, typography, and the grid. Basically, we have defined a color palette. You can change it for the one you want. We have defined a typography that is the font system. You can change it for the one you want to introduce the personality of your brand. Same with the colors. And also with the grid. We have a standard grid of 8 pixels that works really well, and it's basically a standard, but you could change to 6 pixels, 10 pixels, 12, whatever you want, and it will be displayed immediately in your portals, let's say. Then we have the core components, where you can find the most basic and most used components. We have the suites, we have the buttons, the cards, the table, lists, many of the things that Juan showed before, fields, whatever. You will find it there, and you will find them in lexicon.io. Then for each of the components, we have variations that give us a wider range of possibility to play with components. Basically, they are the same pattern with a bit of different look and feel for different reasons, and same functionality or a slight change on functionality. And then we have the extension points. And as you are technical people, most of you will already know, but it's basically the points where we offer you how to extend the functionality so you can build more with the components that we give to you. This is one example of a calendar, but there are many other things like table cells to embed your CSS and your functionality, etc. And then we enter into this part where there are examples and things to inspire you. And first of all, we have the satellite components that it is what our product teams create due to their business needs. And this is really similar to what you do, probably. So you have some requirements, you create your components, and to create these components, you basically need to follow the foundations and the core components, and that's all. With those two things, you can build up any kind of component. We have here several examples, right? Like the file uploader, the blocks widget, or the Miller columns that we will see later on in an example. Then we have the templates that are reusable structures. Right now, we only have 2 templates that is the dataset display template with the management toolbar and different views, and then we have the forms template. And last but not least, we have examples. That is the last thing we added to the Lexicon site, and we hope this inspires you to create your own interfaces too. We have here, for example, an something brought from Analytics Cloud, that is the assets page, where you can see a dashboard created by Rafael, where they show the statistics per asset, and they've been using all the different components from different core components from Lexicon, but they had to create these new tabs for their use, for the use case, and they have been doing it combining foundations and core components. Or we have the page distribution that is using the Miller columns, and right now I have to say that already have all this functionality that was lacking there, with all the drag and drops to order, to change pages from column to column, to include pages inside others, move things around, etc. And I wanted to show also this case, that it is a partner portal that is a public site that is also built with Lexicon and combining different foundations and core components. So that's all I wanted to show today. We wanted to show today. Please visit lexicon.io to find this presentation and to read more about Lexicon. Please rate this talk if you liked it and leave us your comments. And thanks for everything, everyone. Thanks for coming. You will find us outside if you want to talk about Lexicon, user experience, administration experiences, anything related to user experience in Liferay portal or any kind of Liferay product, maybe. Thanks.
Thanks.
All right.